My wife and I are on a mission to build our dream mountain homestead. We're looking for a large piece of land where we can build our home, a large workshop, and a bunch of Airbnb cabins. We've chosen Bryson City, North Carolina as the region for our new home, but finding a suitable property has turned out to be much harder than we thought because the vast majority of land out here is way too steep to build on. But after months of searching, we finally found the perfect property.
It is huge, secluded.
This whole thing is just one giant man-made building pad. There's a lot of value here.
Nice community, close to our family.
Oh, buddy, this is so good. I think this is it.
Yeah, crazy.
But just as we were leaving Bryson City, we got some really bad news. Yesterday was the day that we were gonna put in our offer on the property. And then, like yesterday evening, our broker called us and said that they had heard from the listing broker that they were going to be receiving another offer that same day. And so we actually made an offer higher than we were going to already, but they didn't accept our offer because ours was contingent on the boat being sold, right? So we haven't sold the boat yet. We are scheduled to close on the boat in about a month. The owners of the property accepted the competing offer because that offer didn't have any contingencies. They had cash and they were ready to close in like 2 weeks. So the crazy thing is that property's been on the market for a couple months and we found it, loved it. The next day, went to go see it. The day after that, we put in an offer. So we put in an offer like 2 days after we first went to see it. And yet somehow, the owners of that property received another offer on that same day. How insane is that? What are the odds? We didn't see anything else that we liked nearly as much as that one. The thing that's important to understand is how rare it seems to be able to find a piece of property that's that relatively flat and that close to Bryson City.
And in our price range.
Honestly, I'm like so demoralized. Like I have no idea what we're gonna do. No idea. You can't travel starting in like 2 weeks because of the pregnancy, and we were gonna have a place to go and like get to work right away, you know, after the baby was born. It was just, everything was gonna line up, and now nothing lines up. Like I have zero clue what we're gonna do. Yeah, man.
Right now we're actually on our way south. We're gonna head back home. Jordan's gonna fly to Italy and work on selling the boat. Now it's like we still have a lot more work to do before we can just kind of relax and wait for the baby to come.
We're an hour and 40 minutes away from Charleston. Our friends are expecting us there. I'm not gonna be very fun to hang out with, I feel like.
I think we should go stay at our friend's place and kind of just regroup, look at some more listings. I don't know. In another world, like, all the timing worked out perfectly. This path, though, there's just so much more uncertainty and so much more work to do now.
So I've spent the last 2 days looking at property listings, but honestly, there's just nothing on the market that matches what we're looking for right now. But up till now, I've limited my search to properties with 5 acres or more. So I decided to broaden my search a little bit, and I did find one property that looks promising. Now, it's only a ½ acre, which is way smaller than what we've been looking for, but it's got a really good view. It's got a graded build site that's ready to go, and it's got water, electric, and septic all ready to go. But what makes it really stand out is the location. It's only 5 minutes from the national park. It's 5 minutes from downtown Bryson City. So I think it could make a really good Airbnb someday. And I've also been thinking a lot about the property that we put an offer on last week, and we would have had to basically spend all of our cash buying that property. And long term, I think it would have made a really good investment, but we would have had to pay for the building materials and all the tools that I need, all with our monthly income, which would have been stressful, especially considering that I have zero building experience. This new half-acre lot that we're looking at, on the other hand, is much, much more affordable because it's so small, which would leave us with enough cash to cover the vast majority of material expenses and tools for our first home, at least. Which has got me thinking that perhaps losing out on that first property may have been a blessing in disguise. So tomorrow I'm heading back to Bryson City to check out this property. Now, Desiree is way too close to her due date to come up there with me, so I'm gonna be bringing in my dad, the big guy, and he and I are gonna go see if this could be the property for us. So we are approaching the property. I gotta admit, it's a little weird. Haven't seen it before. Nice neighborhood so far. Yeah, this is it. Wow. Certainly a lot steeper than I thought it was gonna be. Certainly a little frustrated. The steepness that I was conveyed was a little bit different. Okay, well, let's check it out. So we saw this property virtually. Our broker gave us a tour of it. It is a pretty view, and we're in a really nice area, really close to the national park, really close to town. It's not tiny, but like it would be difficult to fit more than one structure here. You can see there's rocks in the wall there. It's like it would be pretty difficult to dig further in. Over here, this is a pretty high drop. I mean, that's like a 12-foot drop back down there. And then actually our property does extend into a good chunk of that. I've been kind of thinking that we could utilize that somehow as like a yard, and maybe we could. I think there's certainly ways to like use this property in a really cool way. It's gonna be an adventure van, turn this into a beautiful home. It's hard to see right now, but I think it's doable.
Just tell me where you want me to stop.
Go to the furthest possible truly flat part. Yeah, that's 32, 34. Oh yeah, there's a guy. Nice to meet you, man.
Good to meet you.
Yeah. We just had the current owner of the property come by and chat with us for a long time. That conversation made me feel a lot better about this property. He was talking about how there's another little section up here on the hill that he had thought about digging out to build a second house up here, which is great. And then the other thing we're talking about is the house would, you know, obviously be here, but what we could do is have the deck extend out over this retaining wall here so that you'd have the deck going all the way out here so that from the deck, you've got the epic view. Yeah, and the other thing that really changed my mind is it finally cleared up. And so the view here is beautiful. Like, it is a very nice view. All right, so we have been here for a couple days now, just taking measurements and getting to know the property. I'm feeling really good about this property. So I want to just give you a full tour of everything that we know about it so far. One of the big things is today is a cold day. It's like 37 degrees, but the property is south facing. So as you can see, we're just getting baked in the sun right now. Every square inch of this build site is in the sun. And that's huge for an area that does get cold in the winter, right? Like the house here will have windows facing that way. And so sun will come into those windows all day. So we'll get a lot of passive heating from that, as well as it'll just make it feel a lot cozier in the winter. The other nice thing about that is if we do get some snow, if we get some freezing, or like in the spring and fall when it rains a lot, the sun will make sure that all of that ice thaws early in the day and that all of that water evaporates. So if we look over here where the car is parked, this would be the parking. We would have room for 2 vehicles. This is the driveway that leads up to the property. It is a little bit steep, but we've got like city tires on the truck right now, so we'll upgrade that. I think that'll make a huge difference. Also, we've found that if you just kind of get a decent speed going and then you like don't slow down until you get up, we didn't slip at all the last 2 days. So I think that that's totally doable. Like that won't be an issue. So room for 2 cars to park here. The house would start about here, and then we'd have all of that room there for the house. For this starter property, we've settled on a smaller house plan. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, just over 1,400 square feet that is optimized to become a short-term rental, but which would make a great home for us for a couple of years until we do finally move on to the next property. It will be a tight fit, but we were able to confirm that this house would fit on the build site. I've also been slowly designing this smaller structure using SketchUp, which will also fit on the build site and would act as a office/tool storage/man cave, but could be converted into a 3rd bedroom once we decide to rent the place out. There's some property up here above the cutout. Most of that isn't really usable in terms of building. What I think we could do is put a water tank up there so that we could have a reserve of water that I'll kind of explain to you here in a second. Now the property then goes down off of this retaining wall here onto this yard down here. And that's all ours as well, but that's where the leach field is for the septic. So we can't build a whole lot down there because you can't really disturb that. And then this right here is the location of the septic tank. So the tank is buried in the ground right here. Now, something that I think works really well though, is that from this side yard, you can walk over here and there's actually a really nice little grade that we could turn this into stairs to get down to that lower area. As you can see, it's really easy to walk this, like it's not steep at all. Obviously we'll get rid of this brush and all that. And then that would give us access to this lower part of the property. And even though we can't build here, I just think that this would make a really great play area for the kids and for Oso. As long as the kids exit that side entrance to the house, they'd have that side yard, they'd have a way to get down to this yard. And then with a fence here, there'd basically be no way for the kids to get out that way while they're really young, get into the street or whatever. So as long as like the kids, when they're really little, exit out the side, they could have access to a bunch of like outdoor play area.
So one of the big reasons that we decided to move to the mountains was so that we could raise our family in an environment where living an active lifestyle could be both easy and fun. But recent studies show that many active people are chronically low on electrolytes, which are essential for nerve function, hormone regulation, nutrient absorption, and fluid balance. And a lack of electrolytes can lead to a ton of negative side effects like headaches, cramps, fatigue, and that's why I recommend Element, the sponsor of today's video. Element is a delicious electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing you don't. It contains 0 sugar, coloring, or artificial ingredients, and is perfect for those following a keto, low carb, or paleo diet. And right now, Element is offering our viewers a free sample pack with any order. That's 8 single serving packets totally free. It's a great way to try all their flavors or share with a friend. So head over to drinklmnt.com/Atticus or click the link in the description below to grab this awesome deal.
So this right here is the power for the community. So our electricity would come from this box and the power utility company will run service up the driveway to the house. And then also this development has a shared well, and basically water will get pumped up from the well in a line that's going to be installed going up the side of this driveway up to the house. And as I mentioned before, we'd probably install like a reservoir up at the top of this hill so that the water would get pumped into that reservoir, but then the pressure for the house would actually be gravity fed. And if the pump ever failed, we'd hopefully have, you know, a couple days worth of water to get by until it gets fixed. This area is on the property, and this would actually make a really good second build site, which this could be like definitely a 1-bedroom, maybe even a 2-bedroom house. And I'll show you, this is actually the best view on the property. Like the view here is great. It's stunning. You can see the mountains, but just a little bit up here. So this is roughly where the house would be. And you can see the view there is just amazing. Now, as we've mentioned before, our goal right now would be to build like a mountain homestead. So lots of land, way off on our own, right? Like lots of privacy, the ability to develop like a ton of different structures, like a giant, awesome workshop, YouTube studio, guest house. And this property wouldn't be the place to do that, to go all out. What we've started to realize is that in the mountains, properties that have a large amount of flat land where we could build all those structures that we want are just very rare, and they don't come along very often. And then on top of that, that property would require us to clear trees, grade land, install septic, install a well, get power from like potentially far away. So all those things would take a long time before we could possibly live on the land. So this property allows us to live on it like right away. Like it'll take us very little time to get power, water, and septic hooked up. And so the plan right now would be temporarily, we would park the trailer here, and then we could live in the trailer while we're doing the building. So we could move in here, you know, in a month, maybe a little bit more. So that's why we ended up buying this property, is it's a place for us to live like right away. And then we can be here, have our foot in the door in this market, and keep our eye on the market so that when that dream homestead property comes onto the market, we can snag it up right away. And the last really important thing about this property and why we bought it is the location. So most of our homesteading land that we could possibly buy is gonna be somewhat far away from town. This property is, in my opinion, in the best location in the entire region. It would make a really great rental. Like, people would love this area, and it'll be a great place for us to live in the meantime. So the thing that made us decide to buy this property is the fact that if we right away bought our dream homestead property, there's a good chance that we would have to live in like an RV park and pay a rent monthly for like a year. And that would add up to be a substantial amount of money. And honestly, coming off of boats, that's kind of my big rule right now, is that every dollar we spend needs to make money in the long term, not lose money. And that was one of the hardest things about living on a boat, especially like a blue water cruising boat, is that every dollar you spent on that thing, you knew you'd probably get maybe 50 cents back, maybe even less, right? And so it was a depreciating asset. All the money we poured into it, we were gonna lose a large amount of it, and we knew it. And that was the cost, the price of having an epic adventure like that. So, I mean, it's worth it in a way, but at this stage of our lives, financially, I wanna start making it so that every single dollar we spend makes us some amount of money in the future. And so that's what this will do. I think this is a great solution for our short-term problem, and it'll be a great investment long-term. So Desiree and I talked it over, and we decided to put an offer on the property. And in fact, we already heard back, and they have accepted the offer. So it is going to be our starter homestead. Now, my plan is to build this home basically by myself with some help from friends and family. And as I've mentioned, I have practically no building experience, so I've got a huge amount to learn. So to get started, I've decided to try to gain a little bit of experience before we start on our property. I've decided to volunteer with the Helene Rebuild Collaborative. Now, you may remember a few months ago, we featured their work in our episode about the aftermath of Hurricane Helene and the devastation that it brought to Western North Carolina. And they've done an amazing job helping a lot of the rural communities that are really hard to reach on the outskirts of Asheville. They've been working tirelessly to get those people the essentials that they need, like water, food, tents, cooking stoves, propane, like you name it, everything that they need, they were out there making sure that people had what they needed. Now, it's estimated that Hurricane Helene damaged more than 73,000 homes. So HRC's new plan is to change the lives of 10 families and build them each a brand new home. And I've decided to volunteer to help build one of these homes. I just think it's a great way for us to support the community that we are now joining, as well as to just get some hands-on building experience from professionals. So for the next 3 months, we're gonna be making a video series covering my journey of going through every step of the construction process and to see what it takes to build a home from scratch. Now, HRC is hoping to build as many homes as possible. So if you'd like to help support them, you can click the link in the description below, or you can scan this QR. Your donations will help get families out of tents and into homes so that they can start rebuilding their lives. Now, in terms of us buying this new property, we're set to close in about a month. And this volunteer build doesn't
doesn't kick off for another couple weeks. So we're actually going to have to take a short break from releasing episodes until the build starts, which our first volunteer build episode should be out on March 1st. We apologize for the break. It should be the last one in a long time, and we are just so stoked to take you along on this journey. And as we wrap up this road trip series, I just want to say thank you for coming along for the ride, for watching the videos, and in particular, I want to thank the people who make these videos possible, our patrons. It's been an incredible journey so far, and without you guys, none of this would be possible. Your support means the world to us, and we can't thank you enough for sticking with us. Other than that, we will see you guys on March 1st. Hey guys, thanks for watching the episode. Real quick, I want to address a common theme that was cropping up in a lot of the comments from last week's episode regarding, issues with zoning, permitting, percolation testing for potential septic systems, all that. We haven't gone into the weeds on all of the things that we've been considering when looking at these properties. I do want to just make sure that everyone is assured that we are doing our homework with all of these properties. For instance, every single property that we have looked at in this entire series is on unrestricted land. So there's no zoning regulations, there's no maximum number of structures that we can build, there's no rules about Airbnb and short-term rentals, that we can build as many of them as we want. And in fact, only looking at unrestricted land really reduced the number of properties out there that we were considering. So that's another reason why we're not able to find exactly what we're looking for right now in the Bryson City area. I've spoken with the permitting office in Bryson City, and we are able to get permits using a owner-builder rule that North Carolina has. So we're gonna be able to pull permits for everything that we need. The office said that their turnaround for permits is typically about 2 weeks. And I'm not surprised by that. I've heard that from a couple people that we've met in Bryson City, that there's just not a whole lot of people living in that area. And so that office is just not heavily burdened. The property we're buying is in county land, so we actually don't need to follow any city ordinances. As for septic, this property has septic already installed, but our dream property that we put the offer on last week actually had a septic permit on file that had already been okayed by the county. So while it didn't have septic yet, it was ready to rock. The soil had been tested, everything. Now, all of that said, this is our first time developing land and building a house. And so I'm sure we're going to make mistakes. I'm sure that this is going to be very inefficient when compared to a professional or a very experienced person doing it. This is the exact same situation we encountered when we first bought Atticus 1. We knew nothing about sailboats, we knew nothing about sailing, we knew nothing about cruising the world. And because of that, the refit and the beginning of our sailing experience was very inefficient. We made a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of things that we could have done better. But through all of those mistakes and through overcoming all of those obstacles, we eventually did get pretty darn good at sailing and at cruising and at long distance voyaging. And so we're very familiar with that process of coming into something totally green, not really knowing what you're doing, trying your hardest to minimize your mistakes and to make progress, and to just accept the fact that it's gonna take time and experience to actually get good at that thing. And honestly, I think that this is the process that every expert in every field has had to go through to get to the point where they are. And so our goal right now is to just learn, attempt to minimize our mistakes, and just push through one obstacle at a time. So just want to let you guys know that there are a lot of variables that we're considering at this point that we've been thinking about. We haven't mentioned everything for time's sake, but it did dawn on me that we probably should make it clear that we are doing our homework, that we are looking into a lot of these variables. But that said, we are still learning, so keep letting us know things that you think that we should be considering. We really appreciate the feedback. Other than that, see you guys on March 1st.